Hey, welcome everyone. Today more than ever, the world needs voices that spark change, ignite hope, and drive transformation. Change doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when individuals choose to step forward, speak up, and take bold action. Whether you're leading a global movement or making a difference in your own community, your voice has power. In this podcast, we aim to amplify those voices, share the journeys of resilience, change makers, and inspire each of you to recognize your potential to impact the world. Let's create a ripple effect together. This message taps into the concepts of collective empowerment and emphasizes the significance of individual contributions in driving social change. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards. And today, with our lovely guest, Kaylee Beers, we are going to be talking something about really, really cool. She was set up for failure, yet she never gave up. I love this flipping title. And see, I already getting emotional talking about it because too many of us seem to give up way too early. We think it's because we're too old. It's too late. I'm telling you guys right now, it's never too late. It doesn't matter if you're at the age of Kaylee or you're at the ripe age of me at 61. There is never, ever, it's never too late to change. So, Kaylee, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on this show. It is just an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Getting the opportunity, I didn't even realize when you and your mom showed up at the summit, I had already sat down with your mom quite a few months before, and I didn't even realize this until after the fact, because where she's at, the neighbors are some friends of mine that I know from the West Jordan Chamber. And I also shared with your mom that the first time I spoke with you that you were just a bundle of joy. I mean, seriously, you are a bundle of energy. I love your whole outlook in life. And for someone to be the age that you are and to be looking at life the way that you're looking at it now compared to how it used to be in your past is, to me, is just amazing. And you've got so much to give to this world and to give to so many other people because of your attitude. So, again, it is just an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I definitely think that it's very important to have a really good mindset in life. And life is hard, life is difficult, and it's all about the mindset. You wake up every day, you have to choose, have a good mindset, you have to choose to want to get things done and accomplish things in life. And it's really hard. And so I think every day I try to do that, and I try to tell myself that, you just can't give up.
Yeah. And good for you for doing that. And the title of the show, you was set up for failure. Let our listeners know what you actually mean by that. Because I can guarantee that there are people who are listening to this show who have felt the same way about their life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I when I was thinking about this, I've been talking to a lot of friends recently about, not even like recently, but just like in general. I talk to my friends about my life a lot, and I do have some hard days. It's not like there's not hard days in life. It's not like I'm on this show to be like, oh, my life is perfect, and I've learned all these lessons, and I can say that I'm perfect at it and I do it every day. Like, not giving up is really hard, and it's all about resilience. And I think, from a young age, it was always like me and my mom, and I love my mom so much. When I was a kid, she was a single mom for me, and it was always just like me and her, you know. And then when things started going south, to me, it felt like my life was always kind of almost rigged to go this way. When I first fell into addiction, it almost felt like inevitably it was going to happen to me, because I love my mom so much, and she means literally the world to me. And I've seen her struggle with her addictions and things like that. And it almost felt like, yeah, I could be vulnerable to that someday. And when I did, when I was doing drugs and things like that, I almost felt like, um, it was going to happen to me. It felt inevitable, and it felt like I was almost set up for failure. And it did get to a point where I I started giving up because I was like, like this is who I am. This is what was supposed to happen. And I think especially from a young age, like I was told, especially surrounding like my religious viewpoints with my family, like things happen for a reason. And I always looked at it in that way, like, oh, this is happening for a reason. Like I'm a loser. I'm never gonna get out of this situation. And I was stuck in that situation for a long time. And I'm sure the listeners don't know a ton about my life. But when I did fall into addiction, I was very young. I started getting into the wrong friend group when I was around age 12, 13, and it almost felt like, well, like this is just my friend group. This is what is happening. And for me, drugs, it was almost just like an escape. It was just to have fun at first. And then when I finally started getting addicted, it was like, well, I knew this was gonna happen. And it's just my life. Like my mom was an addict and things like that. And it never was like I was trying to be an addict, like I was trying to do drugs because my mom did them. It was never like that. I just almost felt like, oh, it was gonna happen. And it took me a while to realize that that was not the case. It wasn't the case that I was inevitable. It was just gonna happen to me. It happened for a reason, but the reason is up to me. And the reason was up to me. Like, why did I go through that? What can I take from that? And it definitely takes anybody a while to derive lessons from anything that happens to them. But it's all about that mindset. And I think once I started looking at like, yeah, I always thought I was here for like set up for failure. No, I wasn't. That failure, I went through a period of failure and I felt like I was a failure, but that was not the case. And I turned it around. And it just took me realizing that just because I felt like I was a failure, just because I felt like a loser, it didn't mean I couldn't change that around. And I didn't realize I had that power until a lot of things happened and a lot of perspective changed and mindset changed. And I think it's definitely up to everybody's interpretation on their journey. But a big thing for me is I this life is a journey for everybody, and us ourselves, we're the only ones who can make ourselves happy. Nobody else can give us that happiness. And so when you say, this happened to me for a reason, I'm the victim in this situation, just like when I went to the Success Summit, I can't remember who gave talk on playing the victim. I think it was you
That
who
was
gave
me,
that talk
yeah.
about being the victim in life. And that really spoke to me because I almost feel like addicts in general, they have an addiction and they're good people and they need to realize that they're almost doing it to themselves. Like they need to realize that they do have that power to decide how to change. Yeah, it's going to be hell. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of years. Yeah, it's going to take daily commitment, doing things every single day, but we have to stop that cycle somewhere. We have to like look at ourselves and say, are we happy with the decisions we're making? Yes, no, how can we change this? And I think when I talk about saying I was set up for failure, especially with my mom and my dad and their situations and my situation and things that happened with like DCFS and foster care, like it almost felt like all these bad things were happening because I was meant to be a failure. But really, there are lessons that I needed to learn and there are things that I can take from it. And I try to remember that every single day and do my best every single day and keep getting better because I'm not a failure and people need to realize that they're not a failure and they have that power inside them and they can change their lives. And I really would like to talk more on it, but I just wanted to say that they do. Like we have that power to choose what we want to do.
Yeah, and I would really like you if you decide to, to talk more about it. And because seriously, Kaylee, at such a young age, to be able to put all this together And I'm not saying by people that are, or individuals that are your age, like they're not adult enough or don't understand, because we are, right? We understand choices. We understand a wrong and a right choice. It, that summit, it's crazy because you just mentioned it. We can change our brain, right? We can change how we're thinking. We can change what we do each and every single day. And it was so crazy because that's how we launched our summit, was talking about the brain first approach, right? And all these talks kind of started falling into place. And also you said something that's very key. Each of us have our own journey, and we have to go through things in our life to understand. And a lot of times we don't understand while we're going through it. However, again, I say this a lot on the show, and I say it because it makes so much sense. But when you connect the dots backwards, not forward, connect the dots backwards of everything that you've gone through in your life, you will realize you're exactly where you are meant to be this very single moment. And now you've got hundreds and thousands of other dots that you're going to be stepping on, just to go back again in another 2 years, 3 years, or maybe even another 6 months and go, oh my gosh, this happened to me, so I could be here. And we get to learn by it. You know, it took me till I'm in my mid 50s. It took me till I lost a career 15 years ago before I started playing stop. Well, I still played the victim for a long time, but before I started realizing who I was as an individual. And society has a way of shunning on us if we fail. And then we have shame. We put shame within ourselves because we feel like we did something wrong, when really we didn't do anything wrong. And everyone out there has failed. There ain't a person that walks this earth anywhere that has not failed at multiple things. But again, if we don't fail, how the hell do we learn? And you have picked up on that. So I say kudos to you, young lady.
Thank you so much. I definitely agree with your thing on society. Society is so detrimental to one's self image. In fact, I struggled so much with my self image, especially like in my middle school years when I was really young. And I always had the question like, who am I? You know, and like what can I do to show who I am? And I think that's a question that a lot of people have, like, who am I? Like, what do I value? And things like that. And it always really bothered me that I can never answer it. Um, but something I've learned is that you do not need to apologize for who you are. You should not have to explain yourself, why you do the things you do, or why you are the way you are. You need to learn to love yourself for you. Because like I said, you're the only person who can make yourself happy. And I really did struggle with that for a long time. And I felt like I didn't know who I was. And I felt like when I was using drugs, I felt like this is helping me find out who I was. But in reality, I was just getting really lost. And like you said, like the other side of addiction, or in that world, like things are a lot different. And I was very blindsided to my journey in general and the direction I was going in, because now I've been sober off of hard drugs for 3 years now.
Congrats.
And thank you so much. And it's really crazy the way my perspective changed when I first got off of the drugs. And the first thing I noticed was that I had really low self-confidence, um, and low self-esteem. And I always had, but it was even more so after. And I felt like, um, specifically psychedelics, like I felt like they helped me, but they didn't. And now I realize I have a lot of trauma from that, and I have almost thinking errors in some places where I feel like it's changed me. But the most important thing, I've realized that I don't have a lot of self-confidence, and I'm gaining it back, but it's been a freaking journey, and it's hard. And I feel like a lot of people my age, like I almost wonder if they feel the same way as me. Like I've always wondered that, and I've always felt like, well, I was just set up for failure. Like this is why I feel like I am a failure, because I have all these thinking errors and I don't know who I am. And that is so wrong. because we know who we are. Even if we can't explain it to anybody, we're on our own journey and we shouldn't have to explain why our brain thinks that way. Like I think that's very unfair, and I've gotten in a lot of fights with a lot of people. You know, it always comes down to like what you value, you know, and I think it's very important to set up those values and those boundaries with yourself. Because I remember when I was on drugs, I had no values, I had no boundaries. I was very crazy and a free spirit almost. But as I've gotten sober, or as I've continued with my journey, even I've realized that I shouldn't base those off of other people. I should really ask myself, like, what do I value and who am I? Who do I want to be? And specifically with me graduating this next year in 2025, I've had a lot of people like ask me, like, what do you want to do with your life? You know, and that's a really scary question. I'm not gonna lie. It's scary. But I think that you shouldn't have to answer that right off the bat. You should do what's good for you and what you think is good for you. But you need to find your values first.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
no, you're good. You're good. But I definitely think that society has a way of influencing how we feel. And I just want to touch base on why, like, I've had such low self-esteem. Like, it shouldn't be just like one reason, like, oh, this is why I've had low self-esteem since I was in like fifth grade, you know? Like, I definitely think it is a journey and we need to work on it every single day. We shouldn't let society define how we should feel or why we feel this way. Like, I definitely have done even like a lot of research, like why do I feel this way, or like, but at the end of the day, like Google's not gonna answer why you feel this way. You have to find out for yourself, and you need to love yourself enough to want to do that.
And you were so right. We cannot shed or give forgiveness. We cannot give full love or true love. We cannot really give back to society or a community unless we have all that for ourselves first. Because once we have all that within ourselves, we actually spread more of it and the energy is so much higher, you know. And setting the values and your boundaries is so true. You have to have those. And also when you says it's scary when someone says, well, what do you want to do with your life? Well, heck, does anybody really know what they want to do with their life? I mean, we can have goals, right? We can set a goal and we can reach a goal and set another one and reach that one as well. However, my version of it is there's no finish line when it comes to bettering ourselves. It's a constant movement. We cannot sit stagnant because we all know what happens with water when it sits stagnant, especially if you're in the mountains, you come across a pond and it's hot during the summer and it stinks and there's flies and there's bugs. That's exactly what happens to our mind for us that do that same thing. And my version is with everything that I have gone through is live each day by that day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Hell, I don't even know if God's going to grant me tomorrow. I have no clue. I may not even see it. So why do I need to be worrying? Because as long as I've thrown in the towel for me, and this is just my story, I have thrown in the towel, my higher power, who is God, and I'm like, you just take me. I'll follow wherever you tell me to go. Because every time I grab a hold of the steering wheel, I end up putting myself in the damn ditch every single freaking time. Or if I try to control, if God wants me to go left, I'm going, no, I got to go right. I end up in the ditch again. So if we live each day as the day is here, enjoy what has been given to us today. Our roadmap is almost laid out in front of us without us even freaking knowing it.
That is so true. It is so true. And I think especially when I did get sober, it wasn't just the fact that I realized that I had such low self-esteem. I realized that my physical body, my mentality, emotions, they were crazy. And even if you don't believe in a higher power, and like I feel like everybody struggles with that at some point in their life. You need to realize what your mental mind needs, your physical body, and your like spirit. You need to search out what feels right with you. And I actually did kind of almost like energy work on myself when I started getting sober because I realized that I was mentally lost and physically sick. And that was my first thing that I did. I did a lot of journaling, and my biggest thing was to stay awake, aware, and alive. I called it the 3 A's: awake, aware, and alive. And I told myself that I'm here with myself. I need to stay aware of what I'm feeling mentally and physically and spiritually. I need to stay alive and aware of what I'm putting into my body. And I need to have a why. I think we all need to find our why. Like, why are we doing this for ourselves? And I think that's the biggest thing. And it takes a lot of willpower to do that. It does. It takes, like you said, every single day, consistency, and finding what feels right with you for the good reason, if that makes sense.
No, it makes really good sense. And I love the 3 A's. I wrote it down. I love the awake, aware, and alive because really that's what it is on a daily basis. So I love how you put that together. You know, to go back, if I may, to go back when you finally woke up one day and said, I'm going about this the wrong way. Number one, I'm not a failure. Yes, maybe I have some self-esteem type issues, but I'm going to see what I can do to work on getting rid of that. I'm tired of living the life of drugging and partying and making wrong decisions and the really bad wrong decisions. What was it that woke you up? Because it seems like the majority of the guests that have come on the show, they just had that aha moment that just kind of, it's like walking into a room that's dark and flipping on that light switch and they're looking at life in a totally different way that they've never ever seen life before.
No, for sure. I would love to share more on that. One thing that I kind of want people to know about me is um I've struggled in the past with knowing about God and how I feel on the subject. And I feel like when people share their testimonies a lot of a higher being, sometimes it's like I had this one aha moment. And sometimes it's like this little thing that happened that changed their whole entire perspective. And I think it's very similar with addiction and having those aha moments. I think that it wasn't necessarily just an aha moment, but it was one day I looked around and I was looking at my circumstances and I felt something inside me that just told me, hey, this isn't like, is this what you want? This isn't right. And it was just those little feelings that kept coming to me. And it got to a point where I was like, do I want this? I wasn't going to school. I didn't have a job. I was not living in the best circumstances. And it was a really not good environment. And I, it was just sad because it felt like I lost myself so much. And I was so lost. And I didn't even know what I was gonna do. I was a middle school dropout. I felt like I didn't know anything. I was trying to get my grades up, online school, but I didn't care. I just dropped out. I was like, I can't do it. I gave up. And I gave up on a lot of stuff. I gave up on my friends. I gave up on my family, and my family situation was horrible. I was living with my dad, and I met my dad when I was 10 years old, and he's a drug addict too. And I was living with him, or living up in South Salt Lake, and it just wasn't a good environment. Um, I was getting sick from like all the drugs that I was doing, and I kept getting these fevers, and I had anemia, and I was very like light, like I lost a lot of weight. And I think definitely just being sick it kind of opened my eyes to why am I so sick? And then it started turning why am I mentally sick? And I just started thinking a lot. And one day I just I just had a conversation with myself and I was like, is this really what you want? And it wasn't until my aunt, she I went over to my grandma's house because I was sick and my dad didn't know how to take care of me. And my grandma was taking care of me, and my aunt walked me out in front of my grandma's house one day. This is when I was staying with my grandma. And I can't even remember the whole talk. I was high and stuff like that. But she had a lot of symbolism. I remember she got like little like hand sanitizers out of her backpack and she did a lot of symbolism, but the main message was, why would you want this life? And um she told me that she was willing to provide a life for me where I could change it all around. And she said it'd be a lot of hard work. And I was really scared. But I decided to do it because I felt it inside me and I was like, I need to change my life around, even if it's gonna be really hard. And if she wasn't there, I would have gone to foster care and I was in the state custody at the time. Um, and she let me come live with her. In fact, that's where I am right now. I'm in my aunt's house. I've lived with her for 3 years now. Um, and it was really hard. When I first moved in with her, the way she lives is way different than I was raised. It's way different than the circumstances I was living in. It was really hard. But I think a big part about getting clean, not only from drugs, but mentally and just like completely clearing out everything, you have to rewire your brain. Like, especially what we talked about with the Success Summit, you have to rewire it. And a part of that is getting rid of old habits and old things. And I remember when I first came in this house, I threw a ton of my old stuff away. I threw away all my drugs, all the accessories I had with them. I threw a lot of, I actually did a lot of Satanism things, and I wanted to get rid of that. I wanted to move on because I was so lost and I was so confused, and I was willing to change my life. And I think that's the biggest part is being willing. Maybe you don't know your why at the time, you don't know why you're doing it, but you need to be willing to do it if you feel like something needs to change. And I was willing, and that's why I'm here today. And it was a big change. And uncle to introduce me to all these different things, like making your bed every day and why it's important, and just little things that as I've gotten older, it's became a part of my value system. And I've never had good boundaries or good values, but I've learned a lot of important lessons. And that being willing is the first part, and never giving up and staying committed. And my uncle actually, when I first moved in, I would say like, "Oh, I tried to do that." Like he's like, "Can you do this?" "Yeah, I'll try." And he was like, "You'll try? Like, what is that?" Like, trying's not a thing. And I was like so confused. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'll try. And we actually got in arguments about it because I was like, I'll try. Like, I can't do it. Like, I can't guarantee I'll do it, but I'll try. And he was like, no, trying is not a thing. And I think it's actually a quote by Yoda that there is
Yeah,
no
it
try,
is.
just do.
Yeah.
And so I really like that quote. And I live by that because honestly, like, are you gonna try to go to school or are you gonna go to school? You know, are you gonna try to make your bed or are you gonna make your bed? There's no try, there's just do. And my uncle definitely lives by that, and so I've learned to live by that. But yeah, it's just that daily consistency. And I think there was another talk, I don't know who gave it, I forgot his name, but he talked about every damn day, doing something every damn day. You have to do it every day. And especially with sobriety streaks, like I'm not gonna lie, I'm not perfect. I, especially with hard drugs, I've been sober for 3 years, but other drugs like weed or things like small things, I have not. And I will admit I'm not perfect, and there are times where I've messed up. But that shouldn't stop anybody. Life isn't perfect. Life is not going to be perfect. There are going to be times where you mess up, But if you can just have that willingness to get back up again and keep doing it, if you can know your why did I do that? What do I want? Let's try again. Let's do it again, not try.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that outlook is definitely good, and I feel like that is what has helped me from staying away from the worst drugs. Like the drugs that I did do, I will never go back, and I know why I won't. And I think especially with the small things, like one time, I think this was last year, I hit a vape and I was so mad at myself. But I told myself, I was like, okay, you didn't feel good about that. We're not going to do that again. Let's keep going. This is not going to stop you. This doesn't mean you're going to relapse on other things. Like I told myself, like, you can't. Gotta keep going. You just can't stop.
yeah.
And I definitely feel that in many other aspects of my life. Like I have always struggled with school. I hate school so much. Like I was a middle school dropout, and when I first moved in with my aunt and uncle, it was literally, it wasn't even a miracle. I just was so dedicated. And I can say that in ninth grade, I got straight A's the entire year and I had a 4.0 GPA. And that has never happened ever in the history of my academics. And I really shocked myself just from trying, just from doing it every damn day. I told myself, let's just try it just for a year. And I was convinced that I wasn't gonna live here more than a year. I was like, no, like I'll be out of here in a year. Like I'll get back up on my feet. But the more every like day that I got more sober, and I started implementing being alive and aware and awake, I realized that as the days went on, I was more aware of more things in my body. I was more alive. I could, like, especially with drugs, like you're so desensitized when you're on that stuff. Like I could finally feel my feelings again, and it sucked. And I told myself that you just got to keep going. Like I was kind of intrigued. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finding out so many things about myself that I hate. Um, but I just kept going, and I think that's, you just can't give up. You just can't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm here to
No,
tell you you can't.
no,
You can't give up.
don't be sorry at all. And again, man, I tip my hat off to you, Kaylee, seriously, because what you're sharing today could even change someone who's in their 30, 40, 50, 60s, or 70s. And it's serious that it can. You talked about how hard it was, and that it's not going to be easy. I like to go back to that saying, choose your hard, right? Living on the streets or living drugging and drinking and partying and hanging out with the wrong individual, that's hard. Or do you want to choose your hard to where I can get my life back on track again? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. Which direction do I want to go? Because one direction, your life's going to get worse. If not lost, you're going to lose it. Or something really, really bad could happen to you, right? Or you choose to go the opposite direction and still have it be hard. However, as you're progressing in that, you just said it a couple times, your mind starts clearing. You start opening up. Your vision becomes clear. You're starting to understand things just a little bit more. And now you're starting to see something and go, okay, wait a minute. I gotta think on this a little bit more. Why is this happening to me? And oh my gosh, it's taken me here. What if I keep going? Where will it take me? And so many of us are so quick. It's like when a wolf is chasing a lamb just lays down and gives up because it doesn't believe it can outrun a wolf. So it just gives up. And so many of us give up so soon because society has us molded that we, especially us Americans, we want stuff now. Give it to us now, right? We can get on a computer and we can press a button and we can have whatever information we want right now within seconds. However, it doesn't take seconds to put us in the dark. It takes years. The same thing's going to happen when we're trying to find the light. Okay, let's get rid of that word because I'm using that to get out of my vocabulary. When we want to get into the light, when we're heading towards the light, so we have to choose our heart. Which direction do we want to go? And And we tell ourselves, and I don't like to use the word belief. I still slip and I'm working and I'm getting a lot better. I like to say now my version of it, because if you look at the word belief, the word lie is in there. So what makes my belief different than your belief, or what makes mine true and yours not? It doesn't, right? Because your belief is your belief, mine is mine. So I like to say my version of it now is as long as we leave the outside world away from us and not listen to the naysayers and all the BS and all the crap that's coming, to where we start questioning ourselves and we're so afraid of failing. My gosh, we have to fail. We have to fail to get to that next stone ahead of us. We have to slip and fall in the water. We have to get wet. We have to hit our heads. How many times did we fall learning how to walk? We don't remember. Our parents do. How many times did we split our lip open, or our chin, or our head, or something, and land on our butt? But we never gave up. Then as we get older, we are so quick to throw in the towel because it's like, huh, this is difficult. I don't want to do this anymore. When we are literally heading down that same road that could take us to where we really want to be.
Yeah, that's so true. In fact, it's been really hard for me to watch my old friends now. I had it's actually my ex-boyfriend at the time. He was a big factor as to why I was addicted to drugs. Um, I saw him last year, and I actually got in a car accident because I was so emotional from it. Um, and I learned that now I know that he shouldn't control how I feel. But even just watching him and the difference in my life now, I realized that I've gotten so much further because I threw in the towel and I said, I'm done. I, I'm going to change my life around. And I realized how much he had a hold of my mind when I was addicted to drugs, and how much he influenced me even years after. It was really hard. That was the biggest part for me, was getting him out of my um, head. But I realize now, like, I've taken a look at what I've built. And that's the biggest part for me is, wow, like I've built a lot ever since I decided to throw the towel in. And especially you talked about instant gratification, that's so detrimental, especially in our society today. Like instant gratification is everywhere. And it's horrible. It is so bad. And it's so hard now to choose to be like, oh, wait, it's so hard to save your money. It's so hard to choose to go to work every day. In fact, I worked 5 a.m. shifts for a year and a half because I was like, I can't give up. And I have an addictive personality. And so I literally traded my drug addiction for my work ethic. And I hated work at first. I worked for my uncle for the first year I lived here. And then I got a job at the rec center down the street. And I went from being a lifeguard to now a pool manager. And it was that daily effort. And now I can see what I've built. And it's really like, now it's a part of who I am. Like, I'm so proud of my job and what I do there. But it's not even the fact that I work at a pool, it's the fact that I didn't give up in that area of my life. And I built so much. And not only financially, but in the community, I've met so many amazing people. And I can look at my ex and be like, wow, like we're the same age, we're at the same place in life. We were at the same place in life, but now we're not. And this is how much I've grown from where he's at, just because I decided to throw in the towel. And I really hope that one day he decides to do that. But now it's so easy to be like, oh my gosh, like it's easy, but it's not. Like I know how hard it is, but now it's like almost like, oh, you got this, like you can do it. But yeah, it's really about that daily effort and avoiding instant gratification. And it's hard because we get so desensitized to it. We think, oh, it's fine, it's not instant gratification. And desensitization is a big part of it too. And I hate being desensitized. Like it's so bad. In fact, in my this is so off topic, but in my English class right now, I'm starting an argumentative essay about it and an informative essay about desensitization, but it's so bad. And that's my big thing. I even have it up on my wall, being aware, alive, and awake, the 3 A's. And I also have on my wall, like, know your why. Like, I need to remember that every single day, every single day, so I don't lose track of what I want. So I don't give into the instant gratification.
Good for you for doing that. There is actually a book that is called, I believe it's called Know Your Why. And when I was the director of member relations at the West Jordan Chamber, the chamber president actually bought that book for me and gave it to me. And it's a really, really good book. I'm a slow reader. I'm not big on reading. I never used to read. However, as I've been working on changing my life, I'm starting to read a little bit more. And I got away from it, and now I'm doing my best to get myself back into it again. But it's a really good book that gets you thinking, know your why. And sometimes I don't really think we really know what our why is. I didn't up until almost 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it just, again, I like to say God just put it right in front of me. Apparently I was passing it constantly, not even paying attention. One day he stuck it right in front of me to where I either had to hit the thing or something. But it's never too late to find out what your why is, because we all have a purpose here. Every single Everyone in this world has a purpose here. Some of us never find it, and it's because we are lost in our negative thoughts. We're lost in our own shame, and it's not opening our vision. And I like to say, so many of us live our life looking through a straw. We just see what's just in front of us, that little tiny bit, instead of doing what you've done, throw in the towel and go, okay, I don't know where this is going to take me. I don't have a clue. I'm scared. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm done doing what I'm doing. Let's see where it goes. And then all of a sudden, slowly but surely, that straw starts splitting and it starts opening, and our vision starts getting wider and wider. And we start seeing more blessings ahead of us. And we start, I don't know, for you, it was for me. I started realizing that I had so many blessings every single day in my life that I was literally taking for granted and just bypassing because I was so blind. You know, I was outside this morning having my cup of coffee, and I'm sitting on my chair, and all these birds are flying. There was robins, there was starlings, some doves was flying by. I've got chickens to the left of me, chickens to the right of me, and I'm sitting there having my cup of coffee, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, my gosh, I am so blessed to be able to hear this. I am so blessed to be able to hear the birds chirping, the chickens crowing, cackling, and hearing a dove fly over, hearing geese in the background, because there's other people who do not have that. And just those small things like that, of seeing what really life is all about. And with you sharing your story, you're seeing that. You're seeing, oh my gosh, all your hard work and all your dedication and devotion of wanting to make a change, you're starting to see so much, and you're starting to see the lessons in the mirror, which is what Cap talked about at the summit. And I talked about it last year, about seeing that vision in the mirror. When you look at yourself, even though you make a mistake or you think you failed, there is always a lesson behind it. What is that lesson? Sometimes we figure it out quickly, sometimes it may take months. I've had lessons that's finally come to me going, oh my gosh, that happened 3 years ago to me. I finally get it, right? Because something finally opened the door for me to see it, because that's when that time was supposed to happen. So good on you for going in the direction that you're going.
Thank you.
You know, ice in this, I don't even know if you've even envisioned this, Kaylee. The first time that I spoke to you on the phone, and then got to meet you at the summit, and just listening to you here on this podcast, I see you someday, if this is the direction your life takes you, up on a stage sharing your message and helping people change their lives, because there's so many people that are your age that are still stuck. We used that 3 years ago. You know, they just don't know the direction, and they may not have the people in their life like what you had with your aunt and uncle to kind of help you go, you know, kind of just lead you in that direction, just kind of nudge you a little bit. And to have someone step up to the plate as young as you are and to be able to use your voice like you are on this show, my gosh, the lives that you can change and get people to think is amazing. I'm just seeing it. Just what I'm seeing in my head because you know, like with your ex-boyfriend, you know there's nothing you can do to get him to choose to go a different direction because again, it's his journey, it's his path. As much as we would like to, and we can still give suggestions or throw out breadcrumbs here and there, but again, it's their choice whether they want to pick that breadcrumb up and eat it or not, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It took me a long time to realize that, and I think it will take people a long time too. Like everybody has their times, and I definitely there's times in my life where I had to relearn a lesson so many times, and it took me so long to get it. Like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that, and this is why.
Yeah. You know, as I said at the beginning, when I finally figured out my why, well, actually, I didn't figure it out. Um, my ex, who I was with 18 years and stood by her side during her addiction, her battle through addiction. We left a studio. I used to have my show at a studio, and we're heading home one day. She wasn't working. She came in to watch the show, and on our way home, she goes, "I think you found your why." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "You found your why." And I even looked at her and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she goes, "You're going in the direction you absolutely need to go in." And I started thinking about it and I thought, my gosh, is she right? Have I finally found my why at age 50 something? And she was 100% right. She had it nailed down because it has now led me not just doing a podcast, it's led me to being a coach, and now it's led me to do more public speaking, and it's such an amazing journey. And every day, which it sounds like you are doing the same, I wake up and there's some days, man, I just don't feel like my most energetic type self. I just feel kind of blah, but it's okay now. I allow myself to feel those feelings and feel that way. And as the day goes, I tell myself, okay, be grateful for what I have, be grateful for what I'm seeing right now because I have a job that pays my bills. I'm surrounded by some of the most uplifting, amazing individuals who we are there for each other when we are having those bad days. And then there's those days where I just feel like I just want to take on the freaking world. You know, it's like I just want to help as many people as I can. And I don't know, this why has just led me in such a different direction. And I see your why head in that direction as well.
Thank you. That means so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what else do you have that you would like to share with our listeners? I won't ask you where you see yourself in 2025.
That's good. Um, I would just give the advice that it's okay if, like you said, like it's okay if you don't know what you want to do for your future. But I think the important part is to at least look a year ahead and say, where do I want to be? And how can I get there? Not necessarily in a job, but mentally and physically and emotionally. Be like, do I want to be in good stance and how can I get there? And definitely just knowing your why and learning how to implement it in every part of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's very important. And I still have a lot of work to do in those areas. And I think it's just doing things every day. And there's a lot of hard days that happen all the time. Like I had a really hard day the other day and just a lot of stuff came up in my past and but you have to choose. You have to choose. You just
Yeah.
have to choose what you want for your life. And you do, like we do have the choice. And it just takes realizing that to make a change. Realizing that we have the power.
Well, and it's those, go back to those baby steps, right? You know, when I lost my job in 2009, um, because I spent 8 years every weekend snorting cocaine and drinking alcohol, and you know that was my escape. 198 pounds. I was in the worst shape I've ever been in my whole life. Taking those baby steps and just moving forward, no matter how big that step was. I mean, there was some days I just barely made a shuffle forward, but it was forward. It wasn't backwards, it was forward. And there was other days I took huge steps. And then again, there was days I didn't take one step, but I didn't go backwards. And just keep moving forward. And I think Devin even mentioned that in his talk. He was the well-built guy with the bald head. He said he was a red-headed child and picked on all the time, right? He had a really good talk. And, you know, he talked about that's what he had, and waking up each day and choosing to do something better, to become a better individual. You know, I woke up at 5 a.m. for 24 years. And even after, well, it took me a while after I lost my job, but as I started figuring out who I wanted to be as an individual, I started getting up at 5 o'clock again. And I started getting myself back to the gym because that's the only direction I knew how to go. I knew how to feel better by working out. And I'm like, I'm just going to start there. And now I have a morning thing. I get up and I do my morning mantra, I guess that you could say, to help get my day started. And it really, really makes a difference. And I don't care even if it's only 2 minutes. That's a 2 minute start that you didn't have before. You know, I started going to the gym 3 days a week. I said, I'll go Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I did that for almost 2 years, 3 years. And then I went to the point where it's like, what am I doing? Now I go 5 days a week. And if I miss a day, I go on a weekend to make up for it. And I've been doing it consistently for at least 9 years now. And again, there's days I wake up and it's like, I'm not going to go. I don't feel like it. And I still force myself to get up, get out that door and get to the gym. And I tell you what, the days that I have to push myself end up being probably some of the best days you ever have.
That's amazing. In fact, that reminds me, I went to it's a youth like conference program. It's called Eagle U. I had the opportunity to go earlier this year, and they really emphasized being a 10. And I remember the first day we were at that program, they're like, choose a number in your head, one being like horrible and 10 being like you feel amazing. And we all held up like our numbers, and they're like, no, you're always a 10. You're always amazing. And you have to wake up every day and tell yourself that. Even if you don't feel like a 10, tell yourself you're a 10 and get your butt out of bed and do something about it. And I have this little quote actually next to my bed. It says, I have a lot of quotes in my room, but it says, little progress is still progress. And it pushes me to be like, even if I have hard days where I can barely like get ready for work and go to work or go to school, or some days I don't even like get out of bed. And I mean, it's been a while since I've had one of those days, but some days it'd be like that. And it's like I just can't get out of bed. But like you said, those baby steps, like just finding the motivation inside of you to get out of that bed is, and it says a lot. And it's like you did, because for a while I didn't get out of bed for like months, and it's even those little tiny baby steps is you can decide to be a 10 every single day and do progress, even if it's just a little bit. So that
Yeah. Amen. You know, Kaylee, I have to say, you have broken the chain. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. You know, talking about that, you was set up for failure, you know, and And you could still be in the same spot that you was in 3, 4, 5 years ago. Definitely, you could have chose to stay there and be okay with it. Having parents who have also fallen into addiction, which their journey is their journey for whatever reason, that's, that's their battles. I've had so many guests on the show who have fallen into the addiction because that's what they grew up around, right? And one thing that every single one of them has said, though, I broke the chain. Now they're married and they have children, and their children never had, thank goodness, the opportunity to see them in that state like what they saw their parents, right? So they finally broke that chain, and now they're starting a new chain. They're adding new links and they're adding healthier links. And it's also easier for them to talk to their children as they get old enough to understand where that can take you, by making certain wrong choices. And especially if we're falling into, drug or alcohol. Yeah, actually any kind of addiction, because any kind of addiction can take our life in a direction that could really destroy and lose. We can lose everything. Doesn't matter if it's drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, gambling, eating, shopping. I mean, there's so many addictions out there, and there are some that are less harmful for others, but the majority of them still takes our family members and the people that care about us. We take them with us, right? Because they love us and they care about us. So congratulations to you for breaking the chain and starting putting links together, putting your own chain together.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, we are just coming up on an hour. It goes by so fast. Is there anything else that you feel like needs to be said?
I don't think really anything else, but just if anything for the viewers to take out of this is just know your why and love yourself enough to find that for you, and don't do it for other people and do it for yourself. And if you don't know why you're doing it for yourself, find that why.
Yeah. And I'll throw into that, if I may. Surround yourself with like-minded people, because I tell you what, they they will help you along your journey, and they understand when you are having those bad days. And the reason why they understand is because they've had those bad days too. You know, a good friend of mine that we talk on the phone every single day, and it's crazy because we've called each other up, and we're always checking to see how each other's day was. And yeah, and there's days where I'm just I want to put my head through a brick wall. It's like, my gosh, everything's coming at me all at once, and I'm taking deep breaths and I'm sighing a lot and doing my best to shuffle my head and going in the right direction. And I'll talk to him about it, and he'll throw something out there to me that I wasn't thinking of because my head's so scrambled. And it helps get me focused and gets me back on the path again, and vice versa, right? So when you surround yourself with uplifting and positive type people, they don't knock you down or they don't shame you for feeling crappy that day. They don't knock you down and make you feel shameful for being depressed that day or not being your upbeat self. They're there to be your support and help kind of guide you and get you back on path. And it's so cool because then one day we get to do that for them as well.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Kaylee, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. And I really do hope we can stay in contact, and if there's anything I can do for you, please reach out to me. Let me know. A lot of times, a lot of us people who you may have seen but not met at the summit, we like to get together sometimes and just do things because we like to uplift each other. If you're ever interested in that, I'd love to invite you and your mom to come to it and just meet some amazing people. There's times that I've had to slow down on my hikes this year because of some issues I'm having with my feet. But a lot of times we'll get these hikes together, and that's all we talk about. We just talk about uplifting things and amazing stuff. And my listeners who know me very well know the mountains and my hikes. That's my church. My church isn't a place that a man built. My church is a place that God built. And I love being up there, and I love feeling spirituality and being a part of nature, and some friends of mine are even talking about, since my hiking's not so good, just even going on a walk on Sunday, just so we can just kind of have that energy. So anytime you're more than welcome, if you've got the time. And you got a great future ahead of you, girl. You're heading in the right direction, and again, I see you doing some amazing things here in the future.
Thank you so much, Al.
Absolutely. Well, guys, here we are again. Thank you all to our listeners, all our past sponsors, and thank you, huge thank you to all our guests and past guests, guys. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for you. And thank you to all those who actually attended the summit. It was so great to see you guys there. Thank you for your love and support. And hopefully we're going to be getting another one planned here for next year. Who knows what that's going to look like? We've got all kinds of ideas tossing around right now. So guys, remember this: addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.